guys, Jarrett here. So I went to Chipotle for lunch, got myself a burrito, some chips and salsa, and a soda. Now I love Dr. Pepper, it is my go-to, but today I found out that Chipotle doesn't have Dr. Pepper, but they did have Pibb, so that's an acceptable solution for my problem. So I went with that, got all the way back to the church, sat down to eat, and I discovered that I didn't have Pibb, I actually had root beer. Now, I've never been a root beer fan in my whole life, never liked it, so it was not a welcome surprise when that came rushing into my mouth, because I was expecting something else entirely, and that actually reminded me of yesterday's Psalm 101, because there are a lot of passages in the Bible that are easy to digest. They are clear-cut, truth right on the surface, and they're easy to apply to our lives. But then there are some other passages that they seem that way on the surface, but when you really dive in, take a big gulp, let it impact you, they're a little harder to digest and don't sit as easy. I think that's something that happens with Psalm 101. So let's take a look at it. Verse 1, David says, I will sing of steadfast love and justice to you, O Lord, and he will ponder the way that is blameless. So here's David, he's going to choose to worship God. And then he says, oh, when will you come to me? It's an interesting question. So if you were with us on Sunday night, I hope you were. We had a blast. It's possible that David was waiting for the Ark of the Covenant to show up right at this time, which is a huge deal. He's waiting for the presence of God to come into his place, waiting on God to show up in a really, really visible way. But he's not in a season of doubting God's presence, and that's really important to notice. So David, he's waiting on God to move while abiding in the Lord's love and in his protection. And I think that's a really timely word for all of us. So we're waiting for God to move, and while we are, let's abide in God's love. How can we do that? Well, the rest of the psalm helps us out. So let's keep going. Verse 2, he says, I will walk with integrity of heart. That's a really big idea, and it's one of your questions for this week, so make sure you dive into that. Verse 3, I will not set before my eyes anything that is worthless. I hate the work of those who fall away. It shall not cling to me. So one thing I think I noticed there is that there's a difference between a wandering eye and an intentional eye. The things you try to look at, that's a wandering eye, or an eye of favor, an intentional eye that wants to look at things and wants to ponder things that are holy and things that are blameless, like David said. There is a difference between those two. It means you have integrity of heart. It means you walk in the way that is blameless, in the way that God has called you. And he says in verse 4 that a perverse heart shall be far from me, and I will know nothing of evil. So I think he means two things. One, he's saying that my heart will not be perverse, that I will follow the way that is holy. If there's anything that is taking my attention away from God, I'm going to cut it out of my life. And then two, if there isn't anybody else around him that has a perverse heart, he's going to distance himself from that person. He's not going to allow those unholy things to penetrate who he is. He wants to spend time with what is holy and what is good. So verse 5 through 8, David is basically saying that he's not going to give his time and mental energy to things that pull him away from God, or to people who are against their neighbor or against him, or causing trouble in his community. He's going to cut that out of his life in order to protect himself, in order to remain holy and blameless. And this is what Jesus teaches in Matthew 5. That is, if there is anything that causes you to sin, cut it off. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw away. So like I said, there are some passages in the Bible that are easier to digest and then harder to digest. And this is one of those ones that is harder because all of us know of something that causes us to sin, that repeatedly brings us back out of what is holy and away from God. I think you know what that is for you. So if you do, my challenge for you is to pray that God will help you remove that from your life and to follow him and what he is calling you to do. If you know of something in your life that's pulling you away from God, what can you do today to cut that out of your life and reposition your eyes to the Father and to what he has for you? Because what he has for you is so much better than anything of this world. and that is my prayer for you. And that's your challenge for today. We're coming close to an end of our selection of Psalms, and then we're going to have some new stuff. Hope you've been engaged in it, and I hope it's really blessed you. Have a great day. Hope to see you soon. Bye.